Moviegoers, Dimitri Panos here. Thanks for tuning in to The CineScope, movies under a new lens. In this episode, I will be putting challengers under the CineScope. Well, Challengers proves tennis is not a love game, and it can't be played with just 3 people. With overblown score, whiplashing time leaps, flashbacks and flash forwards, some dispassionate, uncompelling sex scenes, and zero chemistry amongst the leads, Challengers prove to be a challenge to sit through. The movie opens in August 2019. An ATP Challengers tennis match. Challenger matches are the second highest tier of tennis competition behind the ATP Tour. Consider it to be the stepping stone or entry level just before going and being pro. So, here, let the time jumps begin. Because we go back 13 years, where a relationship between 3 tennis players begins. All at the age of 18, the 3 share a passion for the sport. However, as hard as Challengers tries, the characters' fondness for each other has the passion of a broken racket. There's Patrick and Art, they're best friends. They compete both on and off the tennis courts. Both are very good players. Art, perhaps the better of the two, yet Patrick seems to be his tennis court kryptonite because Art can't beat him to save his life. The two are contemplating dropping games, college, and or career. Then there's Tashi. She's a fierce competitor. She can easily go pro, but instead she chooses to take advantage of a scholarship to Stanford where she can study business and marketing while continuing to hone her tennis skills. Look, it's at this point of the movie that these folks' lives intertwine. They meet at a tennis awards ceremony and after party. Tashi's magnetism transcends the tennis courts as both Art and Patrick shamelessly fall head over heels for her. And I use the word shamelessly on purpose. When the two first see Tashi, it's as if they'd never seen a woman before. Both exhibit wide eyes, hypnotized looks, their mouths agape. The only thing missing was a hanging tongue and drool. Shameless. So let the relationship match begin. Because right here, it's the start of what becomes a dysfunctional friendship based on manipulation. Its foundation is built on a one-nighter menage a trois. Now look, this is highlighted in the movie's trailer. The movie, Challengers, is kind of sold as being salacious and titillating. Well, maybe if I were 12, but it's otherwise unimpassioned, shockless, and bland. Thus begins the tumultuous back and forth relationship. Volley, time leap forward, Tashi is sleeping with Patrick. Look, the story goes out of its way to show Patrick as the eccentric tennis player. He is usually disheveled when he shows up to the tennis courts. He wears black socks and he has a very unorthodox serve. He's a bad boy of tennis. Well, it's obvious that these two aren't in it for the long game, and the cracks are pretty evident. In one scene, during sex, Tashi is thinking about her upcoming tennis match rather than the game that's happening on top of her. The two argue, and Tashi walks out to get her game on. Meanwhile, Art is there to catch up with pal Patrick and watch and support Tashi's tennis match. Tashi is in fine form and on her way to what would be another victory until a bad slip on the court causes her severe injury, an injury that ends up putting her tennis career in fault. Well, with Patrick still smarting from her walking out on him, He's a no-show at the game, but Art's there to offer Tashi emotional support. This all leads to their blossoming relationship, which further leads to their marrying, having child, and Tashi becoming Art's coach and business manager. Look, it was at this point of the movie I'd really lost count of how many times the plot leaped forwards, backwards, sidewards, to end up coming around full circle back to said match in 2019. Here, it's Art and Patrick are coincidentally finalists in this winner GoPro match of the tournament. Or was there something or someone else in play? Ha! The match is all played out in a dizzying, hyper-stylized way. It's shot from below the court, actually looking up at the players. It's done as if they're playing on like a transparent tennis court. And then it goes to a first ball view, making the viewer be the ball, getting served and hit with topspin and backspin and everything. I said dizzying, right? All done to a head-splitting techno soundtrack that overly thumps itself into one's cranium throughout the entire movie. And it's used during just close-ups, characters sitting in a chair, characters sweating. It becomes numbingly pointless. Then the end comes, and it is purely incomprehensible. Director Luca Guadagnino pulls all the stops and makes this story of stratagems and stimulations a battle between being provocative versus pretentious. Tell you, pretentious wins. Game, set, match. Screenwriter Justin Kurtzek's characters are neither sympathetic nor likable in the least. Mike faces Art and Josh O'Connor as Patrick. Well, they're good on their own, but with Zendaya in the mix, they're off their acting game. I'd have rather watched their rise and or fall within the world of tennis towards the final act. When catching up with Patrick, he's downtrodden, penniless, and homeless. Somehow, with all the movie's time jumps, it chooses just to leap over what happened to him. To me, that could have been a far more interesting story. I believe Zendaya to be a talented actor, and I do appreciate her and respect her for taking on meatier roles above and beyond Spider-Man and Dune. I understand it, I get it, and it makes obvious sense from a career standpoint. Why? Because she's obviously playing the acting long game. In Challengers, I 100% believed her as a tennis prodigy. She exhibited the fortitude and determination of King and Everett, combined with the fierceness and strategy of the Williams sisters. I had no doubt that had Tashi, her character, been pitted against either her male counterparts, she would have wiped the court with them. But two things detracted for her performance, for me. One, no matter what hair and makeup did, I could not buy her as a 30-something mom, businesswoman, taking care of her husband and being her business manager. I mean, maybe in another movie, but not here. To me, she's yet to find a project where she can successfully play beyond her years. And then there are the sex scenes. She seemed uncomfortable. She was more comfortable watching rather than participating. There's just nothing there. Talk about safe sex. As a person who grew up going to the movies in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, those are some sex scenes. And at times, a good handful of those movies were described as being gratuitous. Look, if you're selling your movie as being lascivious, Challengers might have benefited by a little bit more gratuitousness. It all feels sterile, and honestly, you see more in Game of Thrones. Challengers pleads to make the audience feel uncomfortable. It ends up being a big, so what? And by the end, I was like, what? Its pretentiousness beat you over the head with an oversized racket, and in the end, it had me yelling, "You cannot be serious!" I end up giving challengers the finger. It made me very angry, like a bad call on a major tennis match. Hey, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to know what you thought of Challengers if you did make it out to the movies. Please write into the comments and tell me whether you liked it, disliked it, and why. I'd really appreciate your thoughts. I'd also appreciate if you like this review, check out my other reviews on this page. It's a revamped page from my original CineScope YouTube page. And if you were a fan of that one, well, hopefully you'll come on over. You're a fan of this one, please like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate you. I will be reviewing more movies in the coming days and weeks ahead. Thank you very much, and I will see you at the movies.